Hey everyone, welcome to this training video about administering identities. This learning module is part of AZ-104 certification for Azure administrators and belongs to the learning path of managing identities and governance in Azure. My name is Navneet Kumar. I am a Microsoft certified trainer and the founder of Traincrest Technologies. This slide outlines our learning objectives for this session. We will delve into the intricacies of Microsoft Entra ID, which is a powerful identity and access management solution. We will then explore how to configure users and group accounts within this platform. Finally, we will solidify our understanding through a hands-on lab experience which is focused on managing Microsoft Entra ID identities. Let us get started with understanding the Microsoft Entra ID. The learning objectives for this topic will be: examine the Microsoft Entra ID. I will describe you the Microsoft Entra ID concepts, the terminologies used in it, comparing the Microsoft Entra ID to Active Directory domain services, how it is different, compare Microsoft Entra ID plans, implementing the self-service password reset, and finally a learning recap. This involves the understanding of fundamental aspects of the Microsoft Entra ID, which is a cloud-based identity and access management solution. Talking about the Microsoft Entra ID, this is used to configure the applications and manage the identity and access to these applications. We use it primarily for different functions like configuring the access to applications. That includes the single sign-on. This application integration involves adding and configuring the various applications like Microsoft 365, Salesforce, etc. This is used as an identity management platform for such applications. We have thousands of SaaS applications that can be integrated with Entra Tenant, and we can use them with this identity management platform. Single sign-on is the term that is used to provide the access to different applications using a single account. So the users are allowed to access multiple applications with a single set of credentials that improves the user experience and the security. Next is managing and provisioning the users and the groups. We provision the users for authentication purpose. We assign the identities to these users, and we can create, modify, or delete these user accounts within this tenant. We also use the group accounts that we can use to logically group multiple users for access control or for collaboration purpose. We also can do the provisioning of these resources automatically through the bulk operations through a CSV template or through the PowerShell modules or the Graph PowerShell module for the Entra ID. Next is providing an identity management solution, including the federation. We can do the identity management, which refers to the overall process of managing the digital identities within this tenant. Next is federation. This allows the organizations to share the identity information with other organizations. This federation can be for business-to-business purpose. It enables the seamless access to resources across different domains. Next point is about implementing the security features like MFA. MFA adds an extra layer of security by requiring the users to provide 2 or more forms of verification like the passwords or the authentication code from the authentication apps like Microsoft Authenticator. We also can use the conditional access policies to limit the access to the users who are not compliant. We can restrict them, and we can allow the access to clients or users who comply with required conditions. We use different concepts in the Microsoft Entra ID, including the identity. An identity is the object that can be used for authentication purpose. We can classify the identities into different categories, like we have the identities that are used for interactive authentications, like user accounts. These users are human beings, and they are primarily these identities are primarily used to do the authentication interactively, which means that the user is prompted for a username, password, or for the multi-factor authentication to authenticate and gain access to the application's resources and data. Whereas we can also create the identities for software workloads, which can be the service principals or the managed identities, which are used primarily for non-interactive authentication by the applications and services. We also can register the devices, and the hardwares can also have the identities allocated to them. In a nutshell, the identities can be of three types. Number one, for human beings as a user identity. Number two, for software workloads known as workload identities for applications and services. Number three, for hardware for the devices like IoT or your workstations. We have something called account. This terminology is used to refer to an identity that has some data associated with it. We have Microsoft Entra ID account, the account that we create inside the Microsoft Entra ID, which was formerly known as Azure Active Directory. Next, we have the tenant and the directory. So a tenant is a dedicated and trusted instance for a organization, and the organization can have more than one tenant as well for separations of duty as well. A tenant is automatically created when your organization signs up for the Microsoft Cloud Service subscriptions. You can stay at the free tier, or you can leverage the premium features by upgrading to the licenses of premium. That we will compare shortly in the upcoming slide deck. Next is the Azure subscription, which is a billing and administrative boundary. These subscriptions are used for billing purpose. Whatever the services you use, you are billed for them, and they are also the administrative boundaries, which means that the users or any security principals granted access on those subscriptions will be limited to those subscriptions only. This can act as a scope of delegation and policy assignment. If I compare the Microsoft Entra ID to the Active Directory domain services that we are using from decades, so the Microsoft Entra ID is primarily an identity solution which is cloud-based, and I need not to create and manage the underlying servers or the infrastructure for it. Whereas the Active Directory domain services requires the servers and the management of those servers, known as domain controllers. We can query this using the REST API over the HTTP or HTTPS, unlike the Active Directory domain service that uses the LDAP queries. This uses HTTP and HTTPS protocols and the industry authentication protocols like SAML, WS Federation, or OpenID Connect, and OAuth for authorization, unlike the Active Directory domain service that depends on the NTLM or the Kerberos-based authentications. NTLM primarily we use for workgroups, but yeah, Kerberos-based, I must say. Includes the federation services and many third-party services like Facebook we can use with it. Microsoft Entra ID users and groups are created in a flat structure manner. Unlike the Active Directory domain services, which is hierarchical by nature, we can have the forest domains and the subdomains known as child domains and the OUs inside the domains to create the hierarchical structure. We do not have the concept of organizational units in Active Directory, in Entra Active Directory or Entra ID, because it's flat in structure. And we do not have the group policies here as well. For management of the policies, we need to turn them into the different policy assignments to the MDM and MAM solutions like Intune. If I compare about the tiers of the directory, number one, we have free tier. As I mentioned earlier, as soon as you sign up for the cloud services, you get a free tier of the Entra ID. But this is limited with features. If you want advanced features for securing the identities or protecting your applications, then you need to think of using P1, which is Premium Plan 1, or Premium Plan 2, P2, or the governance. This is a comparison table. Also, I will be putting the link or useful links in the description of this video, which you can refer to compare all the different features that are offered by the specific tiers. For an instance, the single sign-on is unlimited in free or P1 or P2 tier, whereas cloud and federated authentication is also available in all tiers. Advanced group management, for an instance, you want to use dynamic groups or dynamic group membership, that the user's membership is decided based on the attributes of the user. As soon as the user's attribute changes, the user's group membership must also change. So if I want such conditional expressions to define based on the attribute based membership of users, then I will have to switch to premium tier. I need to have P1 or P2 tier for that. So that advanced group management I'll be getting in P1, P2. Self-service account management portal is there in all. Users can access the myapps.microsoft.com portal and can access these applications or their profile. Multi-factor authentication is also available in all the tiers. As far as the conditional access is concerned, so it comes with premium 1 at least. But for some of the features like risk-based or conditional, risk-based conditional access, be it sign-in risk or user risk, that is part of the P2, because the sign-in risk or user risk can only be evaluated or validated through the identity protection service, which is part of the premium plan 2. Automated user and group provisioning to the apps is available in P1, P2 or the governance tier. And the governance feature, which is referred as privileged identity management, PIM, so that is available in P2 and the governance tier. This privileged identity management is nothing but the time-bound access. We assign the access to users temporarily. Those users who need the privileged access into the organization, rather than assigning them permanent access, we can assign the access temporarily. We can make them eligible for a particular role. On most of the video, on most of the topics I have discussed over here, I have done videos on YouTube, and I'll be putting the link in the description of this video. And I recommend you to refer to those videos to understand each and every service in detail with the demonstrations. If I talk about the self-service password reset in the Entra ID, this allows the users to recover their accounts at their own. As the name suggests that this is self-service password reset, most of the organizations have implemented it to cut down the cost of the human workforce or person managing the passwords or recovering the accounts of the users. So today users can recover their accounts at their own if they forget the password, which is very common these days. So this feature, self-service password reset, helps the users to recover their accounts at their own, and the feature belongs to the premium plan 1 tier. At least you need that. You do, or you configure the registration process, that how the users will register for the self-service password reset. And then this can be done through the alternate email IDs or the phone or through the security questions. There are different ways to do it. And once the users have registered, then the users can use that alternate method of authentication to recover their accounts in case they forget their passwords. Well, this is one of the feature of Entra ID, and I have done a video on this as well. You can have a look at the video and understand like how to set it up. As you see from this screenshot here, that this is the configuration process from the Microsoft Entra admin site, that how to enable this registration. We can do this registration forcefully for the users that when they log in, so they need to, or they will have to have register for it, or we can keep it through a portal. Then in that case, we need to educate them and ask them to go to that particular portal and register for this self-service password reset. So choice is yours, depending on the size of your organizations and the users' education about the Entra ID or the security. Well, this is the administration of the identities or the Entra ID, where we talked about understanding the Microsoft Entra ID or allowing the users to reset their passwords with the self-service password reset, or implement and manage the hybrid identities. Next topic is about configuring the users and group accounts. The learning objectives of this topic are creating the user accounts, managing user accounts, creating bulk accounts, that's optional, creating groups, assigning licenses to the users, create administrative units. Demonstration is there for creating users and groups. Finally, there will be summary and the resources that I will provide in the description of this video. Well, the process of creating the user accounts in Entra ID is quite handy. All you need to do is you need to access the Entra ID through various portals, be it Azure Portal or Entra Portal, which is entra.microsoft.com, or it can be the Intune portal or Office 365 Admin Center portal. From these different portals or the Graph PowerShell module, you also can manage these identities. The screenshot that you see here shows you that how you can create and manage these user accounts inside the Entra ID. Shortly, I'll give you a demonstration about managing these user accounts. This is about managing these user accounts, where we can decide that what permissions will be allocated to them, and the user profile settings, be it picture, job, or different attributes that we can set for these users. Deleted users can be restored also. There is a recycle bin by default turned on this tenant, and up to 30 days these users can be recovered from. Sign in and audit logs are also there, where you can check that who logged in, whether that login was successful or failed. So you can use those audit trails or the audit trails for understanding that what sort of management in the Entra ID or activities have been performed, like the user accounts were created, deleted, or any sort of activities that take place, be it creating something, updating something, or deleting the identities or Entra ID accounts. The logs are generated for that. As far as the groups are concerned, so we can create the groups to logically unite multiple users. That makes it easier for assigning the permissions to them. For that access control management purpose, we use the group type as security groups, whereas we also can use the groups for collaboration purpose, and we can create the Microsoft 365 groups, and we can collaborate with multiple users at the same time. We have different types of memberships. Number one is assigned, where I can decide that which user will be part of which group, and this is done manually. So I will have to decide the group membership manually. Whereas if I want this to be as dynamic, that users can be assigned to a particular group based on their attributes, so I can put some conditions, some expressions there. Suppose the user's department is IT and country equals to, let's say, India. So the user will be the, let's say, IT administrator, or a particular group you have that the user you want to join to that. We can assign the licenses to users and groups. And to do this, if we are going to assign this license, we need to consider a few things. And these are the license plans and the plan details we need to see. Set the usage location parameter, which is important to define where the users will be using it from. Assign the licenses to the users or the groups. It is better to assign them to the groups so that the user's group membership will gain that user license. But if you want explicitly define it to the users, you can do that. Change license plans for users and groups. and you can remove a license. So these are the day-to-day management activities that you need to do inside an organization as an identity and access management administrator. As part of this demonstration, I will show you the review on license and domain information, explore the user accounts and the group accounts. To manage the users or group identities and their licenses in my Entra tenant, I can go to the Azure portal, which is portal.azure.com. Here I will search for the Entra ID. That comes up with Microsoft Entra ID. This is the default directory that was created when I signed up for some cloud services for the first time. This is my tenant default directory, and the primary domain I have associated on it is traincrest.com. This is Microsoft Entra ID free tier I'm on right now. And here on the left, you see the options to manage the Entra ID tenant or the accounts. We have the options to go to the custom domain name and associate the domain names that we own. We can add them. For instance, I own traincrest.com, so I have verified that Skillsify. So I have added the domains here as per my requirement. Once I have added these domains, I can set one of the domain as primary domain. Like this is traincrest.com. It is verified, and here you see the option to configure it as a primary domain. So I have made it already a primary domain, which means when I'll be using the user accounts creation wizard or wherever a domain name will be required, so it will be used as a primary domain. Here I have my user accounts. I can create my user accounts from here. So create a new user, and from create new user, I can provide the user attributes here that I want to create. For an instance, I want to create a user account here as Alex. Alex at traincrest.com will be the user's user principal, and the display name for this user will be Alex. I'll keep it short and simple. This password is a temporary password. At the first login, this password need to be replaced. If you want to provide a fixed password for this user that is not required to be changed at the first login, then create this user account from the Office 365 Admin Center or through other management tools instead of Azure Portal. This is a temporary password. It is auto-generated, but yes, if I want to give the password of my choice, I can provide, but still it will be a temporary password. At the first login, this will be required to change it. Well, this is the password that I have generated, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard and will use it later on. So this was the password that I want to use for this account. Here we go. So if I want to give a manual password, I can provide that, and then account is enabled. There are a few other properties. This UPN is already in use, so I call it user Brad, and this is the display name of this user Brad, and then I will provide the attributes for this user, and here the member type, that whether this user is member of this directory or is a guest. Okay, so we can have internal guests, and internal guests actually will have limited access to your directory. I have done a video on managing identities in Azure, and there you will see a detailed description about the internal and external guests or internal and external members. So I can define the user type, the job title for this user, so who this user is. So for an instance, this user is administrator, company name, and then department, and all these attributes that I can provide here. Here we will be having the list of all these attributes, and the usage location I'm specifying is, let's say, India, and then I can go to next to do the assignment to any administrative unit or to a group or any role I want to assign at this moment, and I can finally create this user account from here. Well, this is how I can create this user account and then use this user account to log in and access the cloud applications once they are assigned. Right now the user is not having any license. If you want to see the licenses on your tenant, you want to manage them, so you should manage them from the admin center, Office 365 admin center. Ideally you should manage them from there. If I take you to this directory, and here on this directory you see the licenses, I go to the licenses blade in the Azure portal, and from the licenses blade, basically we manage all the licenses that we have on our tenant for different applications that we have purchased, and we can manage them. Well, this is where I need to go to the licenses and manage those licenses from here. This licenses window or this management of the Entra ID you can do from Entra portal as well, which is entra.microsoft.com, and you need to log in with your account there to manage these identities. And you can use the Office 365 admin center as well as aka.ms/admin center. You can manage the users from there as well. I need to authenticate to the Entra portal here using a particular account, so that I will specify. I can log in with my work account, which is actually a global account, global admin account in this directory. I can show you that from the admin center as well, where from I can allocate these licenses. Well, this is the admin center homepage, where we have the options of all the users, active users we can see. And for these users, we can allocate the licenses. Here you will see the users with their licenses allocated to them. You will search for a particular user, for an instance the user Brad, and for that user you want to allocate the license. So you will open this user's details and then license in an apps, and you can assign the license. For an instance, Microsoft Power Automate free license I want to allocate to this. So this user has been assigned with a license this way. So this is the license assignment for the applications that you can do through the admin center. And okay, here I need to do the authentication, and then I can work with these licenses. But ideally it is recommended to manage these licenses from the Office 365 admin center. You can go to manage and you can see all products here, and all the products or all the application licenses you have on your tenant, their details, how many have been assigned or free, you will find them here. So this is the license assignment for these users. Coming back to this directory, if I go to the users, I can create the users in bulk by downloading a CSV template. So I can perform some bulk operations like bulk create or inviting the guests or bulk delete. For an instance, I want to do bulk create. In that case, I can download this CSV template, will fill in all the details in that those required columns, and then will upload that CSV file back to the portal, and will submit it, and the user accounts will be created in bulk. Earlier, this thing was only possible programmatically through the PowerShell modules, but today you can do it from the portal. Talking about the groups, you can create the groups from here by going to the new group button, and you can create a group from here. You can choose the group type, that whether it will be security for access control purpose or for collaboration purpose you will be using Microsoft 365 group. You will choose it accordingly, and then let's say I create a group IT admins or something, and then group description for demonstration purpose I want to create this. Membership type will be assigned because I'm not on the premium tier of this directory. For that, I need the premium licenses if I want the dynamic user assignment to these groups. Well, in this case, I will have to manually decide that which user will be part of which group. I will go to the users, and then I can make a user a member of particular group, or I can go to groups and then I can add the users there. So it can be done from any of the direction. So this is my users window. I go back to my Entra ID and the groups. From groups, it will be a little bit handy than by going to individual user and assigning that user to a particular group. Well, here we have all the groups and the list of these groups. I created the IT admins group. I will choose that group from here and will add the members to it. So there is management blade. From the management blade, you can check the members of it, and you can add the users as members to it. Add members, and here you can pick a particular user and add into this directory, into this group, excuse me. Well, this is how you can make the users member of a group. So whether you do the management from Azure Portal, Entra Portal, entra.microsoft.com, or you do it from the Office 365 Admin Center, Intune Portal, there are different portals that you can use to do the management of these identities in the tenant. Or you can use it programmatically through the PowerShell graph module is there. I have done a video. You will find that link in the description of this video if you want to manage the accounts in the Entra ID programmatically. Well, how will you perform the lab? For that, you can create the Azure free trial subscription, Azure free trial and free trial. So go to azure.com, microsoft.com and create your free account. And with that free account, you'll be getting the $200 of credit to test all these services. So using your Microsoft account, create that free trial and then get started with your tenant and use the steps to manage these identities. For this first module of AZ-104, you will find the lab document on GitHub. Go to github.com and there is a public repo here by the name AZ-104. So for an instance, you want to do it for AZ-104, you will search for it. There will be a public repository that you also can download to your local system in case you want. So you have the option to go to the code and download it as a zip and then extract it on your local system. This repository has everything, all the required templates, scripts, and the instructions. You can work with these instructions from here itself, from this repository. For an instance, you want to do the lab of the module 1, which is about managing Entra ID identities. Here is the lab scenario and the lab you're going to perform on creating the user accounts and creating and configuring the groups as well and adding them as members to the group. Step-by-step guide is there. If you want better visibility, so you can go with this here. The HTML. So there is link to HTML format. You can open that and from the main page of this repository. And here you have the option to download the files. So you click on download here, that all files directory will be downloaded to your system, this repository. And you can define a location where do you want to store it. And you will be having all the required templates that will be used later in this program or in these labs. Then you can launch the first lab here. This is the lab scenario. You are going to create the user, that is IT Lab Administrator, and you will invite the guest as well as IT Lab Administrator. You invite guests from other domains or other tenants to provide support to you or for any business to business collaboration. Then you will add them into a group called IT Lab Administrators. These are the steps, and this is where you need to go to Azure Portal. You will be redirected to this portal once you sign up for the free trial. So create your first free trial subscription, or if you already have some dev test or MSDN or any sort of subscriptions available for testing, so do it today. And do like, share this video, and do subscribe to this channel for more updates and hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching and see you in another video.